So this is a sort of morning in bed recording. Um, our entire human experience seems to be guided by a focal core principle or activity, which most of the times it feels that it becomes hidden in the background. An activity that, although there is almost at the between, almost at the surface of our conscious awareness, but also underneath that surface. It's an activity that it almost feels to define our entire human experience. And that activity can be described as the search for meaning or the search for love. It doesn't feel to be either meaning or love that the human mind intrinsically searches for. It actually feels to be a deeper feeling, a deeper sense of reality almost, that we could describe it as wholeness, or even belonging, or even completeness. So it feels like we always, underneath every activity that we do as humans, the purpose of any activity that we actually do, it feels to be to achieve this sense of wholeness, of love, of belonging. It's almost like I could also describe it as the sense of paradise, of heaven, let's say. It feels that deep within the human mind, there exists this core sense of lack, of something missing. And I think especially throughout our adult lives, we have, almost all of us, encountered this feeling of something missing, of a lack, an unexplainable sense of lack. Where, and I think many people have described this experience, that they experienced it in their own lives. This sense that when you accomplish a big thing, when you get that thing that you actually worked for or aspired for, or when you complete a big project, or you become, let's say, a famous character, there is this pervasive sense of lack that comes, like this bittersweet experience, that when one feels at the peak of its glory, at the peak of the success, there comes this sense of deep lack within. And because that sense of lack comes and it feels painful, it's almost like an immediate rejection that the human mind experiences towards that feeling. And it's so immediate that for some people can happen even without their conscious awareness. It can happen through their subconscious. So when they are, let's say, at the peak of an experience, when they have that perfect relationship, or they completed that perfect project, or they created that successful company, or whatever, when the human mind perceives that success, a double experience is also perceived, and that is the experience of lack, of something lacking, of something missing still. It's something like, oh, so this wasn't it. So I wanted this, now I have it, but I still feel something is missing, something, a deep lack within me. So this fulfillment that the person has achieved, it doesn't feel to last. And it's almost in that moment when the feeling of success is felt, the feeling of lack is also felt. And that feeling of lack gets almost immediately rejected by the subconscious. And the way the subconscious usually rejects this feeling is by creating another goal. Is by saying, oh, so this wasn't it. This relationship wasn't it. This project wasn't it. This success wasn't it. Maybe I need to find that wholeness, find that thing I'm searching for in the next project, in the next relationship, in the next uh, whatever activity. So it goes from activity to activity, searching for that thing it searches for. It thinks, the human mind thinks that has this, like, I mean, I personally see the human mind doing this by design. So no one is choosing this. No one is intrinsically choosing to do this seeking and revolving around its own tail, so to speak. No one apparently chooses to do that. It's just how the human mind seems to be designed to function. And so we go around our lives searching for this wholeness, thinking that we might find it in the next activity, in the next experience, in the next person, in the next project, in nature, in everything, anything around us. We think that we can go around this physical world, and at some point we will find this thing, this undefinable thing that we are searching for. And when many people have tried to experience and to find this thing in the physical world, and they came to this undeniable, let's say, they came to the conclusion that it can't be found through physical means, then they started to extend that search to spiritual means. So they started extending the same search, but now they took it to the next level, to the level of the mystical, to the level of the spirit. So they started looking for spiritual experiences. They started looking for God. They started looking for energies, spirits, angels, demons, this whole entire, the mind then extended itself to the spiritual realm. And it conquered that side of life, almost, we could say. So then there was spiritual seeking, there was the search for God, the search for meaning, or psychological sickness, psychological seeking, the search for myself, the search for my true actual existence. Who am I as a psychic entity? Who is this me? So then the search extended in these other areas, which became much more invisible. The search became much more ardent and at the same time mystical, apparently mystical. So then the person was trying to find the wholeness, the fulfillment, the love in God, or in a spirit of a sort or another, or in an entity, in a deity, in the universe, in the cosmos, in its own psyche even, and even it's in its own mind. I bet there were humans that in a way try to find their own that feeling of wholeness in the mind itself, trying to deify mind in a way. Or other people might have tried to find that feeling in using different substances that would enhance their perception of what they might be. And they try to find that feeling of wholeness using different mind altering substances, thinking that by looking through different types of minds, different lenses, by changing their mind, they might encounter that wholeness. So apparently, in the entire activity of the human, as it was experienced so far until now, it feels like it was this search for finding something that felt like lost. It felt like this search for finding something that no one knew exactly what it was. It was just this indescribable feeling of lack at the base of our hearts. And we were trying to find, to fulfill, to refill that lack within. But like a sort of Fata Morgana effect, it never seemed to actually work. As much as we tried to approach wholeness by seeking for it, as much as it seemed to delude us, to escape us. So as a general conclusion from this, we can observe, or whomever wants, whomever can, it can observe that this was one of the underlying patterns of the human experience so far. Searching for something, searching for a feeling, for a belonging that we couldn't understand what it is, and we didn't know what exactly we are searching for. So there is also this other side, that whenever we completed a project, whenever we encountered a certain relationship, whenever there was an experience of success, we could indeed, for some moments, for some glimpses, experience that feeling, that state, that wholeness that we couldn't understand what it was. So it was like, indeed, there were experiences, physical experiences, through which we could get a glimpse of that wholeness. Indeed, there were physical experiences that kind of like brought us close, brought that thing that we were searching for some moments, brought it closer to us. So for some moments, we could taste it a bit. In the peak of that success, in the arms of that lover, in uh, celebrating uh, an event, in anything that had an apparent meaning for us. We could indeed experience that thing for some glimpses, for some moments. But then it would rapidly fade away. So it would again escape us, like I said, like a fata morgana. So then it became like a drug. Oh, I need to do this thing in the physical world so I can again obtain a glimpse of that. I need to do this other thing. Maybe if I do this other thing in this physical world, maybe I can obtain a glimpse of that again, so I can taste it again. So if you look at the span of a human life, you could see how there were these significant moments across the human life, these divine, significant, beautiful, exceptional moments when the human got close to that thing it was searching for. But those moments were maybe, let's say, a limited amount of moments. Some people could count them on a hand or two hands. So there were these significant moments across the human life, but in between these moments there were years, sometimes decades, of an activity that wasn't feeling necessarily fulfilling. It wasn't feeling necessarily like this is wholeness. I'm doing this thing and I feel whole all the time. So it wasn't, there were only, let's say, some glimpses across the life of a human being. And in between these glimpses, there was this dull, apparently perceived as dull experience. And for some human beings, there was not only that there in between these glimpses there was a dull experience. In between these glimpses there was this fallback to a sometimes apparently perceived horrific experience, painful experience. So if we look at the overall path of a usual human life, we could see that there is this constant search, like this constant vicious cycle of trying to search for something that you get a glimpse of, but then it fades away, and you try to search for it again and again and again and again. It's just this constant spin around one's own tail, so to speak. And some people, I think some people that realized it, that the futility in a way in this process, even tried to settle themselves on this idea that, okay, maybe after I die, I will encounter this feeling, I will encounter this wholeness again. Maybe just the human life is a hell realm, let's say, and after I die, maybe I'll get to heaven. Maybe then I'll get to experience that wholeness again. So it was again a search for, a postponing of that. And this thing here, this person here has experienced this process. So what I started to understand recently, and I think somehow this understanding was always here since I was a child. I remember this understanding like another layer of the same reality that I was, of the same, let's say, mundane reality. This layer of this under layer of understanding that this feeling that the human mind is searching for, this state of existence, is not, doesn't feel to be anywhere out there, anywhere in the future, anywhere even in the past as well. It feels to be somehow always here. It feels to be that wholeness that the human mind is searching for. It feels to be something which the human mind doesn't know about, of course, because if it would know, if it would know how to always find it, but it doesn't know about it apparently. But it is something that, this unknowable thing, it's something that apparently is always here. This wholeness that the human mind is trying to reach through different activities, through different experiences, it feels to be something which is much more simple, much more close, and much more present. It feels to be something that doesn't need to be invented, doesn't need to be, it requires no, it has no cause and no effect. It doesn't need, doesn't have any prerequisites to it. It doesn't feel that one needs to do this or that to experience this wholeness fully. It feels that this wholeness, or the thing, the mysterious, unknowable thing that the human mind is looking for, is actually something that is much more close, much more real, much more present, intimate than one would actually believe it is. And in my opinion, this thing that we are looking for is our real body, if that makes sense. And here I need to go a bit in describing what I mean about this. When I say that our real body is what we are looking for, it's almost synonymous with what in spiritual mediums would be called our true self, or just reality, or just what is, or just this. But when we say that wholeness is this present moment, or just this, or what is happening right now, here, now, this is wholeness. When I hear that being spoken through the spiritual mediums, I feel that is quite an on point description of it. But I feel there is another deeper layer to this. I feel that this deeper layer to this presence, to this what is, to to this moment, to this wholeness that is pervasive and penetrating everything and all, that can be found here now. I would describe that wholeness as a body. As our real bodies, if that makes sense. Our real body seems to be what we are searching for. And one might ask, well, I have a physical body right here. What do you mean by searching for my real body? When we look at this physical body right here, when the mind looks at it, I mean, what it sees like this organic machine that it can apparently operate. And the human mind thinks that this body, this physical body, is just like a robot, is just like a machine. So it uses the robot in a way and creates activities with the robot itself in the physical world, trying to find that wholeness with the robot. But what I'm seeing is that this robot, this organic thing, the body, the physical body, is actually a representation, a virtual representation of wholeness. This is a virtual representation of our real bodies that we are actually looking for. So our real bodies, let's say the mind currently, cannot perceive our real body. The mind perceives this virtual body, this holographic body, which we call a physical body. And this physical body, oh my God, this physical body is constructed to be the representation, the one-on-one image, let's say, of our real bodies. But in the virtual realm, so here in the virtual realm, we have this physical body, this virtual physical body, to remind us to have an image of what wholeness actually is, of what our real body, which exists outside, let's say, of the virtual representation of the virtual world, is. So this physical virtual body is a reminder of wholeness, this one. But the mind unknowingly operates this virtual physical body thinking that this virtual physical body is just a machine, is just a robot in a way. This is how the mind is designed at first, to look at the body like a machine, like, oh, I have this body and I can operate it in the world and I can do stuff with it, to actually look for that wholeness. But the body itself, if the mind decides to wind down and awareness comes again into the virtual physical body, it recognizes that the body is the door to wholeness, if that makes sense. The physical body is our door. This virtual holographic physical body is the door to wholeness. This is through this body. In this body, there is God, in a way. This is the virtual image of God. This is why they said that I created man in my own image. Because this physical body is not God, but it is a mirror image, a representation, an image of wholeness, of God. It's exactly as you would have a map and a territory. This would be the map. This would be the image. This would be the map of God, of how we can find God, and even more. This would be the human physical body, would be like, when you buy a puzzle, and you get this box which contains the puzzle pieces inside, and you open the box, you take the puzzle pieces out, and you spread them across the table and whatever, and you're ready to start creating the puzzle. But on the puzzle box, you see an image of the entire puzzle already made. That's on the box, you see the image of the final product, of what you need to achieve. And in my opinion, the same way in which a puzzle comes with that image that shows you this is how the puzzle needs to look, this is how you need to connect all the pieces together, this is your image with what guides you in this puzzle, and you know how to create it. You look at this image. And this is similar to how this physical body is an image that shows us how wholeness actually looks, in a way. Because I think the association that came to my mind right now in saying that the mind was looking for our real bodies, was doing all these activities in the physical realm, trying to search for wholeness, which wholeness only meant our real physical bodies. No, our real physical bodies, our real bodies. Uh, the association that came to my mind was this with this myth of Osiris. You know, I think it's an Egyptian myth that says that the entire universe was created from the body of Osiris. And Osiris was this god, let's say, or this thing, this entity, that at some point, I think it doesn't matter now in the storyline how the action happened, because I think it was its two sons or something like this, or one of its sons that killed him and chopped its body in many, many pieces and distributed this body, these pieces, all across the world. And from these pieces, the entire universe, the entire world was created. So now Osiris was spread out everywhere. And I don't know, then I think the myth goes on to with somebody, the wife was of Osiris, trying to find all the pieces and bring them back and unite them back to recreate Osiris back. So I think this is how it is in this myth specifically that this mythological search of the mind is actually depicted, where the mind is constantly trying to find something that it doesn't know what it is looking for, similar to how, let's say, the wife of Osiris was trying to find those pieces that were scattered all around. So the mind is trying to search for a wholeness that it doesn't actually know and cannot perceive, because it feels like an invisible thing that it cannot touch nor grasp. But something within us still remembers that wholeness, and this is why the mind feels that sense of lack, because something within us knows it. Something within us knows we are that wholeness, but we can't see ourselves as that. And this discrepancy between what we actually know to be and how we see ourselves, this gap, this unmatching creates the sense of lack or suffering. When we see ourselves as something we are not, or something that is different from that thing that we actually are, then there is this fluid of unright existing in the mind. So then the mind tries to resolve this feeling of tension, of friction, of frustration, or whatever, suffering, by trying to find that wholeness in the perceived mental experience. And the idea is that, in my opinion, the solution is right before our eyes and much more simple at first than what even the majority of spiritual practices recommend. Because the majority of spiritual practices, and in my opinion, in quite honest and faithful accord, they say that you need to find the self, and then everything will be revealed. The self is the wholeness. The self that always present, always existing. And I agree with that 100%. But I think a much more down-to-earth explanation and down-to-earth description of the process is by saying that first of all, this human body is the key to our human experience, the physical human experience. The human body is like that puzzle map, that puzzle image that shows you divinity, that shows you how Osiris looked at before being split. The human body is a virtual representation of wholeness, in my opinion. The human body is a virtual representation of God. So, a much more down-to-earth description of how we can find wholeness, how the mind can find wholeness, because when in many spiritual practices, when the mind hears that, okay, God is outside of me because I am an illusion, the mind understands that it itself is an illusion. So somehow the mind needs to let itself go and die in order for the being to re-experience itself as that wholeness, right? This is the quintessence of the spiritual practice. It's like the mind is an illusion, and so the mind needs to die eventually, so the being can re-experience itself as its own true self, which means that wholeness, right? This is the quintessence of the spiritual practice. And I believe that this creates, although perfectly genuine, and although this is actually the process, I feel that at the first stages of this, the mind can actually get scared understanding it itself is an illusion. And I feel there is this high jump from being a mind inside a virtual human physical body and jumping directly to presence and beingness, which one actually is. I think the mind could get scared of this jump. The mind could get scared of needing to die, you know? Like the ego, let's say. The ego, right? Because the ego is the mind. The ego could get scared of this for quite reasonable okay. The ego could get scared of this when it hears this for quite reasonable reasons, right? But because if we think that with our minds we need to jump from the mind directly into beingness, this is like quite a high jump. And in the process the mind needs to die, let's say. Of course it feels like can feel like a high jump. But if we understand that there is something in between the mind and wholeness that is much more natural, much more fluid, much more easy to grasp, that is much more true, that makes this process truly at ease and natural, and understanding that that thing in between heaven and earth, let's say, where earth is the mind and heaven is beingness and wholeness, and between heaven and earth, if we understand that there is the physical body which is the bridge between heaven and earth, and we all have it, we all have a physical body, and if we understand that the physical body is an entity made to communicate and to relate both with our minds and with our beingness. So the human physical virtual, this holographic virtual human body is made as an, let's say, brilliant creation, brilliant technology in a way, that allows us to communicate both with the virtual realm and both with the real at the same time. So we could say that the human physical body in a way is the quintessence of both worlds. The human physical body in a way is the actual God, but not, it's the representation in a way of God, is the virtual image of God in the physical realm. So we all have a physical body, right? So the physical body actually already has a natural relationship with the mind. The human physical body, it's already naturally understanding of the mind. It's a natural medium for the mind, because the mind already exists as the human physical body. It already operated the human physical body, so it knows, it feels safe, the mind, in the human physical body in a way. It has this natural relationship with it. Whereas with beingness, it doesn't have that natural relationship with, because the mind never knew beingness in a way. The mind doesn't know what beingness is. The ego, or the mind, which is the same thing, doesn't know what beingness is. So in this respect, the ego or the mind knows what the body is. It trusts in a way the body. It feels safe in the body. So that's the bridge. That's the natural way, a more natural way in which we can, let's say, not attain, but be or reach wholeness. Because these words, when we say that we attain wholeness or we reach wholeness, or we do a process that unfolds wholeness for us or unravels what it actually is here, this feels like a doing. This feels again like a process, but in reality this is only apparently a process for our minds. Our minds perceives this as a process. In reality, beingness is already real and present, and we already are that. So it's nothing else we need to do in a way. But for our minds, that doesn't sound right, because our minds really live in their own selves, in the mental realm, and they don't perceive that beingness. So for our minds, it feels like there is a process happening that gets us or acquaints us or brings us to wholeness, which in reality that's false. But for the mind, that feels like true. So because the mind needs this process, or some minds could benefit from this gradual process of winding down and getting into that place of wholeness, which one actually already is. But because the mind might need this gradual process, a process that for the mind needs to feel safe and needs to feel natural, without scaring the mind to, oh, you need to die now or something like that, without scaring the ego. So the ego and the mind also need to feel natural, and they also need to feel secured, and this process also needs to feel safe for them as well. So how you do this process and how you make it safe and natural is that the mind needs to, instead of focusing on the exterior reality that it itself has created, this virtual mental realm, it has something quite at hand that it can better focus on in order to reach that wholeness. And that is the physical body that the mind already considers it as safe and as natural to itself. So when we use our minds to wind down in a way and to focus on our physical body, to let the mind in a way melt down into our bodies, to stop all thoughts in a way, all emotions, all wantings, all preferences, all desires, all imaginations, and to just rest within the awareness of the body. We can just decide to let our minds rest within the awareness of the body. The body is safe for the mind. So our mind can just decide to rest. And in this rest, in this safety that the body offers for the mind, slowly, this more natural way of beingness can start to unfold by default, because beingness is already being the body. Beingness is already that which keeps the physical body even existing in a way. It's the fuel, it's the energy, it's the life force, the awareness or God that actually lives within the body. So within the human physical body, both the mind and God can make acquaintance. This is where it's safe for the mind to be. Because if we say to the mind, no, you need to die, you need to let yourself go, that can also happen. And some minds can be that courageous, and some minds have been that courageous and have made that quantum leap and that quantum jump, and they just dissolve themselves just like that. It's like throwing yourself off of a cliff. Some minds actually did that. But for other minds that feel more need for safety or gradual process or natural process, making this acquaintance with beingness and with God, for these other minds, we can decide to just trust the physical body, to just wind down our awareness from the mind into the physical body, and to trust that, just to rest there, just to allow the mind to rest for a bit, to stop its seeking in its exterior reality, an exterior reality that the mind itself has created, to stop that seeking and to just wind down and relax and rest within the awareness and intelligence of the physical body, without any other wanting, without any other preference. Just rest within the physical body. Just have the physical body exist for some time without any other wantings, without any other, oh, but what if I will lose that if I wind down the physical body, or what if I will stop being able to manage my projects, or those are only fears. Just trust the body and see what happens next, because the body already knows that. The body knows how to handle projects. The body already knows how to handle relationships. It already has intelligence. The body is intelligent. It knows how to do math, It knows how to do everything. The body, this virtual holographic human body knows how to do math. It knows how to handle relationships. It knows how to handle projects. It knows how to move in the physical world. It knows how to do that. So just for anyone, any mind that is interested in getting more close to that wholeness, just rest within the physical human body, which is safe already. It's safe for the mind to be in the body already. Just trust the body. A mind can decide to trust the body, wind down the awareness inside the body, and just take a rest for some time. And in that rest, in that non-activity of the mind, in that trust within the body, beingness is slowly started naturally to be perceived and unfolds by its own self. So there is zero traumatic mind needing to die. There is just this natural winding down and meeting in the middle. The mind and God, let's say, meeting in the middle, which is the human physical body. This is where God already is, and this is where the mind already feels safe. So both of them can meet here.